a house divided. Can you say that with me? A house divided. Now, one of the most powerful things that we have in our lives is that we share experiences. I often talk about my life and my experiences, and most of my experiences as a child took place in the 70s and 80s, right? Yours might be a little different. Yours might have taken place in the 1990s or the 2000s, but we still share the same experiences, don't we? Oh, yeah. I often talk about I'm a child of divorced parents who were divorced or separated, divorced. I'm a child of a divorced home, and some of you have that same experience. And so we have these same experiences, and so that's why you hear me talk a lot about parent-child relationships and maximizing those relationships, because listen, they're special, and they're given to us by God. So we should maximize them. Let me give you an example. I'll talk about, listen, if you can, once you go to college or trade school or whatever, stay home with your parents. Save your money. Oh, no, you don't understand. I'm grown. Okay, that's fine. But here's why I teach that. Because, listen, you're giving away $20,000 to $25,000 a year that you can save on your own, that you could buy your own car, pay cash. Boy, we need a tune-up, don't we, baby? I guess we need a tune-up, right? I know. Listen. So I teach this. Hey, man, listen. If you can, now stay home, live with your parents if you can. Save your money. I gave them people in the apartment complex a lot of money. I sent a lot of them to a lot of Fiji, all kind of all 16-day cruises. We sent people everywhere. Why? Giving them $2,000 to $2,300 a month. But I do know this, in teaching that, I do know there's always one exception to that rule, and that one exception is what I call a weekend traveler. And a weekend traveler, I was one. Weekend traveler is a person whose parents divorced, and they pretty much lived out of a suitcase as a child. Because see, when I would go home on Monday, first Monday through Friday, I was with Mama. On Friday night, when I went to school, Mama picked me up. The suitcase was in the car. Why? Because she was going to drop me off Dad's house. When I got to Daddy's house, I stayed there till Sunday, which came by like boom. And then I had, hey, get your bags. I take my bags and I go back to Mama's house. So I know with weekend travelers, this is a tough message, because, it's tough going from house to house to house. No, really, it is, especially as a kid, because for kids, we want our own stuff. We want our own bed, our own closet, our own room. But once the house and Mom and Dad separated, it's kind of tough to get that. I remember one of the hardest things that I experienced was, step brothers and sisters. Because when I showed up at Daddy's house, because now Daddy, he was a Rolling Stone, because he was at somebody's house with kids, and I go and I meet them, right? Then I go back home to me and my brother, my sister, we go back home to Mama, and then we go back to Daddy, and he done switched up again. Right, listen, that's tough on a child to be switching, thinking you have to choose and all those type of things, and growing up in that type of environment. And then, I was teaching Leslie about this week. One of the hardest things to do to explain to your kids, my kids, some of my relatives. Because, see, I got some relatives with Mama. I got some with Daddy. And then I got some with Daddy's new wife. And I got some with Mama's new husband. So I got siblings with my natural siblings, and I got step siblings, and I got step cousins, and I had a cousin pass away Thursday. My wife asked me, so how is she your cousin? It was a dissertation to explain. Why? Because I was a weekend traveler. My parents split up. Y'all see this, what I'm saying? And so it's hard for weekend travelers, man, to stay at home with Mom and want their own space and do all those things. It's tough. And one of the most disappointing things that I experienced as a weekend traveler was once, and I've told y'all this story, one time, in the 70s and 80s, they had designer jeans. Y'all don't know much about designer jeans because y'all wear anything these days. But when I was in high school, you had to come to school clean. You understand? So we had Jordache, we had Calvin Klein, we had Lee, we had Levi. Straight leg, you had to have the crease down the middle. And it was after I was at 16, my mom died, and so I moved in with my father trying to work things out. You know, he was living with another lady, and she had kids, and so I was rooming with one of her sons. And I had my own car, man, and so I'm driving to school, and I forgot something, so I had to go back. I went back, and as I'm going back, I see her son, he has on my clothes. Not just my clothes, but my new clothes. He had on I had a pair of Jordache jeans that were dark blue with light gray stripes. And I had the Stacey Adams to match. Y'all understand? So you had to, look, in the 70s and 80s, you had to come with it. You couldn't just be. So he had the stripes on and the stay, and I'm riding by, and I, hey, he like this. He getting on the bus like, get on the bus. He wore my clothes, and listen, that was so disappointing. To the degree that I realized he'd been wearing my clothes, I moved out. Why? Because I wanted my own. But see, and some of you, y'all have these type stories that you probably can tell. But one of the things that I know is that all of that came as a result of division in our house. Our house was divided. My parents got a divorce, and the house was divided. And so that what I'm talking to you now is about the consequences of what happens when a house is divided, and the end falls, right? So this is where, and this is why God hates divorce. You know why God hates divorce? Because divorce is a product of division. That's what it is. And my life has been a product of, my daddy had seeds of divisions inside of him, called adultery. Well, I know I'm going to get a big amen on that one. No, see, listen, that's why when they pressed Jesus about the issue of divorce, about, hey, Jesus, this whole thing about divorce, who can get a divorce, who's right, who's not right? And Jesus had to break it down and say, hey, listen, the only reason why God permitted divorce is because of the seeds of division inside of you called the hardness of heart. You never will deal with the seeds of divorce, and that's why God permitted it. Right? So what we're going to focus on in this series is how to deal with these seeds that cause division in our homes. And there's a whole lot of them, but we're going to focus on some of the big ones, right? We won't talk about adultery, I promise you, because you probably already know about that one. So y'all can smile. Just go and smile. But no, there are things that cause division in our life. To the degree, listen, it's so important. As I said, the word divorce comes from the word division. To cut in half, to split, to separate it, to divide. Listen to this scripture. You have it in your notes. This is Mark 3rd chapter, 23rd verse. It says, Jesus called them over. He's talking about the scribes and the Pharisees. He called them over, and he responded with the illustration. He said, because what they were doing, they were saying that Jesus was casting out demons. They said he's casting out demons because the demons are inside of him. So that's why he can cast out demons. And so Jesus had to slow their roll and say, hold on a second. Let me explain this to you. Listen. He says, how can Satan cast out Satan? He asked. A kingdom divided by civil war will what? Similarly, a family splintered by feuding will fall apart. And if Satan is divided and fights against himself, how can he stand? He will never survive. Y'all hear that? So what is he's telling us? He's giving us listen, it's a natural and a spiritual principle. That division, even in the spiritual realm, if something is divided, it'll fall. So Jesus is saying, in the natural realm, if a home is divided, at some point, that home is going to fall. It cannot stand. Jesus said, Satan will never fall. He can never survive it. He can never survive division. That's why I pray so earnestly about America. We're divided. And any kingdom that's divided, it will fall. Y'all hear me? Okay. I guess we're still on vacation. So let's talk about it. So what is division? Let's talk about it. And we're focusing on relationships. Somebody say relationships. All right, so what is division when it pertains to relationships? It's this. It's when we allow sin. Somebody say sin. Yeah, we still do that. I want you to know, I don't care what people say on television, we still sin. All right? So it's when we allow sin, our differences, disappointments, and disagreements to cause emotional, physical, financial, and spiritual separations. I hope y'all got all that? Right? Now, listen, make sure you underline differences. Underline that. Because, listen, the scripture teaches us that we're to address division in our homes. It is. He said we need to address division in our homes. We need to address it in our church to the degree that Paul had to address it with Timothy and had to address it with Titus. When he sent them out, he said, listen, let me address this whole thing when it comes to division. It should not be where you don't speak to people in your home. We get up, go to sleep, don't speak. Those are seeds. Okay. Baby, you got to give me my seed. I left it there. It's right there, the little white thing. Yeah. Because thank you. It's seeds. Let's read the scripture. It's Titus 3:9. You have it in your notes. It says this. Do not get involved in foolish discussions about spiritual pedigrees or in quarrels and fights about obedience to Jewish laws. These things are useless and a waste of time. If people are causing divisions among you, give a first and second warning. After that, have nothing more to do with them. You hear what he said? For people like that have turned away from the truth and their own sins condemn them. You hear that? So listen, Paul is giving to Titus, he said, listen, hey, there's a way to address division. You talk to people once, talk to them one time, talk to them again. If they don't want to act, then cut them away from fellowship. Don't have any more fellowship with them. Why? Because they want to divide the house. So y'all don't hear that type of preaching. Here's the bottom line. You can't be right with God and wrong with me. You just can't do it. You can't be praise the Lord, everybody, and then won't talk to me. Just can't do it. Well, I thought I'd get a big amen, man. We ain't been to church in 2 weeks. I said, these people going to be rested? Yes, we're going to be ready to go. No, listen, a house divided, man. There's just no way I can come to church and be glad about everybody in church and then go home and don't talk to nobody in my house. That shouldn't be. It's who you are. All right, so why is it important that we identify these seeds of division? Because we all have seeds of division inside of us. Somebody say, I got it inside of me. You do, whether you want it or not. You know, it's called your old nature. It gives birth to old seeds that are inside of you. And those seeds, if you allow them to germinate, they will manifest, people. And guess what they'll do? They'll cause your house and relationships to crumble if we don't deal with them right. All right? So there's some seeds. All right, now listen. I want to say this. I have the seed in my hand. This is a seed from a mango. Yeah? It's a big seed. I had to get it big because, I need y'all to see it. But this right here, this pot and this dirt in it, I borrowed some of your dirt, baby. My wife is not getting into planting plants. Praise the Lord. Y'all pray for them plants, all right? But listen. The seeds that we have on the inside of us, it's like putting it's like putting a seed inside this dirt. The moment it's in there, that dirt is going to cause that seed to grow. And so you know what the dirt represents in us? It's our old nature. It's our old way of doing things. Once we allow certain seeds in our lives, we put it inside that dirt, guess what it's going to do? It's going to germinate, and it's going to grow. It might come up to be a little leaf, and then it'll be a plant, and before you know it, it'll be a tree. And then you have to deal with trees in your life, in your relationships, in your families. I told y'all this on the video I created. We were at my son's graduation, and I almost got in a fight. No, real talk. I'm sitting there trying to save seat because people were late. If you just look straight, they'll know I'm not talking about you. Just look straight. People were late, right? We're trying to save a whole row. So this man came in and he said, I'm going to sit. I said, no, we're trying to save family. They coming right there. He said, you can't save seats. I said, well, we saving them today. No, I didn't say that. I said, no, sir. I said, yeah, they're coming right there. Dude put his hand in my face and said, you cannot save seats. Everything in me said, kick his self. Oh, see, y'all real holy tonight, boy. I was just struggling here, boy, I tell you. No, everything in me said, dude, and I said to him, dude, get your hand out my face. You can't save seats. So listen, and it was just the Spirit of God. He just, the Spirit of God was just there. He just calmed me down, said, chill, bro, chill. Don't worry about it. It's just, So I was cool, right? I was cool. And I said, hey, look, listen, man, your family up there, didn't they save some seats? He said, yeah, but we're here. They're here. Well, they coming. Right? And so I just let it blow over. But here's what happened. Afterward, everybody that came, my family, I was telling them the story. And so as the ceremony was over, we were standing outside, and I'm about to tell the story again, and the Spirit of God spoke to me and said, why are you repeating that? And I said, Well, what's wrong with it? You know, in my mind, what's wrong with me repeating the story? He shouldn't put his hand in my face. You know what I mean? What's going on? Listen what the Spirit of God said to me. He said to me, every time you do it, all you do is you're empowering your old nature. You're empowering your old nature. Every time you bring that negative thing up, you're empowering your old nature to produce something. And what it was going to produce? Anger. So I was get up and start fighting. Listen, I was about to push him, dude. And he was built too. He had his little body shirt on, and he was, tight jeans, and he was, put his hand. And I was like, boy, I'm about to put some blood on that shirt you got on. Right? I'm just being honest, man. But the Spirit of God told me, he said, so stop talking about it. Because every time you bring up the negativity, you're feeding your old self to bring up that seed. And so that's what happens, you all. When we deal with things, when we know things have happened, and we know we need to move on, and we keep talking about it and keep bringing it up, we're just allowing our old nature to germinate that thing so it'll come alive. And before you know it, you're doing things you shouldn't have been doing. You're saying things you shouldn't have been saying. You're having thoughts you should not have been having. Why? All because you just continue germinating it. So why is it important? We got to talk. We got to go. Man, time is of an essence. Here's why. Listen. Number one, so that we might live in harmony with each other. That's God's desire. This is scripture we're reading 1 Corinthians 1:10. I love to give you scriptures because I want you to go back and read them, all right? Y'all got that? I want you to go back and read it, right? So we have to identify these because we want to live in harmony. Nobody want to come home to people fighting. Can't get along. That's why I tell people, and me and my wife, we like to focus on blended families. Because I come from a blended family. Because we want to help you understand how to make that thing work. It'll work if you know how to work it. All right, so that we can live in harmony. All right, the second one is so that we can win life's battle together. Somebody say together. Yeah. So here's what Paul said. This is 1 Corinthians 10. He said, I have a serious question to bring up with you, my friends. Using the authority of Jesus, our master, I'll put it as urgently as I can. You must get along with each other. You must learn to be considerate of one another, cultivating a life in common. I bring this up because some from Chloe's family brought a most disturbing report to my attention that you are fighting among yourselves. I tell you exactly what I was told. You all are picking sides, going around saying, I'm on Paul's side, I'm on Apollos' side, or Peter is my man, or I'm in the Messiah group. You see this? So this is what was happening in the church. They were going around separating. Well, I believe what Paul has preached. I believe what Peter, I believe just the Messiah, what Jesus said. And Paul said, hey, you need to stop that. Why? Because it germinates. And it manifests. And it comes in and it starts to destroy our homes and our relationships. I remember we were going through marriage counseling. Bishop, he would make me and Leslie get in an argument in counseling. We do that now, just in case y'all want. He would make us fuss. And then he said, okay, good. Okay, he stopped. Okay, good. Y'all go home. Y'all go. Now, we weren't married, but y'all go and finish the discussion and come back next week. What was he doing? He was helping us identify seeds of division that will cause us not to either get married or when we get married to be divorced. So he said, go home, talk about it. So we would go home and battle it out. We fought so much before we got married. I mean, I never thought, at some point I was just like, man, this is not going to work. Because we fought so much. And then we weren't having sex to drug us. Because sex is a drug. I'm going with this side. Because sex is a drug. He gets angry, then you got, to make him calm down. No. You need to allow them seeds to come so you can identify what it is. So many people ignore when the little branch come through the ground and say, I'm here. You can't tell me nothing to do. When I get angry, I punch walls. Oh, it's okay. Okay, let me give you a drug. Oh, no. It's a seed. And it'll divide your home and your heart if you allow it. Oh, man, come on, y'all. All right, are y'all here? So we would fight. At one point, we got to the point where my best friend, he said, hey, look, y'all need to go make a decision. Y'all going to stay together, y'all going to leave. Because this is ridiculous. We fought, and we disagreed, and we argued. And at some point, we just said, you know what? We know all this stuff is in us. We can identify it, but we're not going to let it separate us. And then we decided to get married. But we had begun to identify those seeds. Are you sneaky? on this side. No. Are you one of the ones that we can't find you? Where you at? Don't answer your phone. Don't make no text message for about 2 or 3 hours. Where you at? Oh, well, I just fell asleep. Come on now. Somebody say seeds of division. Don't ignore them. Don't ignore them. Because, see, when you get married, you think that stuff going to quit. It ain't going to stop. No, I had a friend of mine in high school, got married, and her fiance, he had a problem. He used to love to hang out with his boys. And they would go out, and they get together about 6, and then they go, and you would see them until about 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. They come back. And she couldn't stand it. And she would tell him, but she put up with it. And then one day she realized that he ain't come home one night. And she realized he wasn't with his boys. Seeds of division, people. We see them, and we ignore them. We see them pop up in the soil. We see them, and we just kind of like, oh, it's going to be all right. That's going to die in a minute. No, it ain't. It's going to grow. Don't miss next week, because we're going to talk about anger next week, because we're an angry society. Where did that come from? We put it in the soil of America, and it's dividing us. Oh, okay. All right, come on, let's talk about it. All right, y'all ready? So let's be ready. The first seed we're going to talk about is the seed of selfishness. It's the seed of selfishness. Oh, man. Let me real quick. Let me tell you the Bible story we're going to use. We're going to use a story. It's about a great prophet. His name is Elisha. Can somebody say Elisha? Elisha was a great prophet. God did some great things in his ministry. He raised people from the dead. Elisha was able to see in the spiritual realm. He was a great man of God, right? But he had this protege. He had this guy he was training that was with him. His name was Gehazi. And see, Gehazi, under Elijah's ministry, he saw great things, man. He was able to see in the spiritual realm. At one point, they were surrounded by a legion of armies. And Gehazi told Elisha, hey, we doomed, bro. It's over. We need to call our family members and tell them it's over. Elisha said, no, it's more with us than with them. Open his eyes, God, and let him see. His eyes popped open. He saw all the angels and the chariots surrounding them. So he experienced some great, wonderful things under the ministry of Elisha. But something happened to him. He had a seed growing on the inside of him called selfishness. And that seed cost Gehazi everything. It cost him everything. And it cost his family along with him because he never dealt with it. Well, I thought I'd get up. Let's read. It's 1 Corinthians, the 5th chapter. It's the first set of scriptures in your notes. It says this. Elisha said, now first of all, let me tell you the rest of the story. So here's what happened. There was a man in Syria who had leprosy. And in the Bible days, leprosy was a very serious disease, right? He had leprosy, but he couldn't get rid of it. And there was a slave child who had been kidnapped from Israel that was in Syria, and she saw him, and she told her master, hey, there's a prophet over in Israel that if he just go over there, that prophet can heal him. So they agreed. Naaman decided, I'm okay, I'll go see this prophet. He goes to see the prophet. The prophet tells him, okay, Naaman, good. You're a mighty man of war. You see that nasty puddle of water called the Jordan River? Go dip in it 7 times. When you dip in it 7 times, you'll be healed. So Naaman decides, after he argued and protested, he decided, okay, I'll go. He decided he dips into the river 7 times. He comes up, and his skin, the Bible says, is as beautiful as a baby's skin. He's completely healed. He comes back to Elisha. He says, what do I owe you? What can I give you for this great miracle? Elijah says, you give me nothing. Go in peace, right? So let's pick it up. Elisha said, everything will be all right. Go in peace. But he hadn't gone far when Gehazi, the servant of Elijah, the holy man, said to himself, you heard that? Who did he say? To who? To himself. My master has let this Aramean Naaman slip through his fingers without so much as a thank you. By the living God, I am going after him to get something or other from him. And Gehazi took off after Naaman. Naaman saw him running after him and jumped down from his chariot to greet him. Is there something wrong? So Gehazi said, hey, wait a minute, hold on, home dog. You came over here and got this great miracle. You got to give something. You got to give something. You can't just come in here and get this great miracle. First of all, you are our enemy. We don't have nothing to do with you. And you came and got this great miracle and you don't give nothing? No, you have to give nothing. See, what Gehazi suffered from this issue, what I call meism. And see, meism manifests like this. It manifests from grumbling and complaining. And grumbling and complaining is symptoms of an ungrateful heart. So this man began to think that he knew more than Elisha. Just like we think we know more than God. Because the moment we become ungrateful is the moment we begin to know more than God. He said, no, it's not good enough you come over here and get that. You're going to give me something. It's not good enough that you've done what you've done. You're going to give me something. And see, listen, here's the problem that we have in our day and age is that sometimes we value things more than the knowledge of where that thing came from. We value a home more than the knowledge of where that home came from. We value a car or status more than the knowledge of where that thing came from. All good comes from where? It came from God. And what Elisha wanted, all Elisha wanted was for Naaman to know that God, the God of Israel, was a true living God. That's all he wanted to know. But when meism come in, when selfishness come in, that seed of selfishness come in, it said, hey, look at me. We did this. Look. And he goes to the man and says, listen, no. Hold on. All of a sudden now he know more than Elisha. Y'all ever been there where you think you know more than your parents? Because ungratefulness is one of the first symptoms of division. When division starts to set in your relationship, one of the first signs you're going to see is people being ungrateful. Thinking like, no. They're supposed to do this for me. No, nobody's supposed to do anything. This is supposed to happen. It's supposed to happen to me. No, that's selfishness. When I put me above everything, this man put his whole ideology above the whole move that God was about to do in Syria. This man was a leper. He was a very popular. He's going back to his country, and God's going to get the glory. They're going, hey, how did you do that? The God of Israel. It's Gehazi. I said, hold on. Stop the press. Let me stop all that. I need you to give me something for that. You're not going to get that free. You see that? And he became ungrateful. Listen, I'm going to tell you now, one of the things that the Spirit of God has arrested me about is this whole issue of how grateful are you? I mean, to the degree where I was about to complain about something in my own mind and in my own private moment. Nobody knew but me and God, and he corrected me and said, why would you complain about that? Be grateful. It's not what you thought, but it's not what, it ain't your business anyway. Grumbling and complaining. It's symptoms, what? Division. I can't hang around an ungrateful person. I'm sorry. I just can't do it. You know why? Because I'm just too grateful for the things I have. And when a person is always complaining, y'all ever had people on your job like that, always complaining? Always, you walk through the door and they're complaining. Whoo, make my skin crawl. If you used to work for me, I used to tell them all the time, hey, listen, stop, let's not talk about nobody. We're not going to complain. I tell them in a minute, hey, we will stop that complaining. Let's be grateful. We got jobs. Some people don't. All right, come on, let's go. All right, y'all got that? So meism, grumbling and complaining, symptoms of ungrateful heart. Ungratefulness is one of the first symptoms of division. One of the first things. Listen, I'm telling you, when my parents got divorced, I look back as a kid, I remember it like it was yesterday. They started pointing at each other. It's your fault. You did this. Stop being ungrateful. They stopped being grateful for what each other had done to build that family. Everybody became now the enemy. Let's go. So listen, next point, listen. Somebody say seeds of selfishness. Letter B, selfishness doesn't trust anybody. So it relies on schemes and isms and lies. No, when a person is being selfish, they don't trust anybody. It's just the truth. Listen to the scriptures. So Gehazi gets to Naaman. He says, hey, man, nothing is wrong, no big deal. But something came up. My master sent me to tell you, 2 young men just showed up from the hill country from Ephraim, brothers from the guild of the prophets. Supply their needs with the gift of 75 pounds of silver. You see what he said? He had it all planned out in his head. I need 75 pounds. Let me see if I get that. Carry the 2, if I get that. All that. Oh, yeah, that'd be good. You mean 75 pounds of silver, a couple of sets of clothes. You see what he said? Naaman said, of course. How about 150 pounds? Naaman said, he insisted, he tied up the money in two sacks and gave him two sets of clothes. He gave him two servants to carry the gifts back with him. And when they got to the fort on the hill, Gehazi took the gifts from the servants and stored them inside, and then he sent the servants back. You see that? You see that? Listen, selfishness doesn't trust anybody. It doesn't. When people are being selfish, they don't trust. So he told them, hey, give me all that stuff. Bring me everything. He had it all planned out. Because he had to trust himself. And let me tell you what happens when people are being selfish. They do what I call they divide and conquer. When a person is being selfish, they divide the house. They try to go see who's going to be on their side. And then they conquer. They feed them that foolishness. So what he's doing, he's dividing what this great man of God has done. He said, hey, look, just give me all this, give me all that. Don't worry about all that. Just give me this, give me this. I'm going to put it in here, and then everything is going to be good. It's good. He's dividing it. What are you doing? We do the same thing in our relationship. We get upset about something, and we start thinking about our own selfish stuff. What happens? We start our whole conversation, we start thinking about ourselves. Think about what we're going to do. And all of a sudden now, we divided the house. I can't tell you how many times I've counseled people and told them, you're selfish. We had a couple one time, me and Leslie, we counseled a couple. We sat here about 4 hours. Never do that again, didn't we? And the bottom line was, you're real selfish. And the selfish person could never see it. They would never see it. They couldn't see it. You know why? Because they don't trust anybody. Gehazi, when he got all that stuff, he took nobody with him. Now, he got all that stuff. Put it inside of his tent. He closed it up. Nobody will know. Why? Because that's what selfish people do. They don't share nothing. Why didn't you share it? Why didn't he get it? If it was good, why hide it? Oh, praise the Lord. If it was good, why keep it to yourself? No. Selfishness says, I don't trust you. So I'm going to have little isms and lies and schemes that I do. Because I don't trust that you're going to love me. And see, what the Spirit of God do, he has to teach us this. Because we come to God selfish. He has to teach us how to trust him. Because we come selfish. And this seed, like no other, this selfish seed cause homes to fall. Because it divides homes. When you start thinking about yourself first before everybody. Isn't that something? You start thinking about yourself, what you going to do. Well, who's going to think about me? No, see, listen. No. I got to go. I'm getting into next week. All right, y'all ready? Let's go. This last point, we'll be done. Listen. Somebody said selfishness. The fruit of selfishness affects everybody and everything. Right? It affects everybody and everything. And listen, I can't begin to tell you. Y'all remember we talked about Achan a couple weeks ago? And how when Achan sinned, what happened? His whole family was killed. Right? Because when selfishness manifests, and when it germinates in our relationships, and when it comes up, people, it affects everything and everybody. Let's look to see what happened to Gehazi. Verse 25 says, listen, when he returned and stood before his master, Elisha said, so what have you been up to, Gehazi? Listen, nothing much, he said. Elisha said, didn't you know I was with you in spirit? When the man stepped down from the chariot to greet you, tell me, is this a time to look after yourself? Lining your pockets with what? Gifts. Listen to this. Naaman's skin disease will now infect you and your family with no relief in sight. Gehazi walked away, his skin flaky and white like snow. So he got leprosy, right? All because, and then the scripture says, and everybody in your family will get it. And see, what happens with selfishness is that it affects everybody in your family. It divides the house, and then everybody is affected by it. Let me give you an example. I told you about my parents. Did I tell you that last one? Yeah. The consequence never stays with just the selfish person. No, it doesn't. The consequence doesn't just stay with the selfish person. It affects everybody in the house. When my parents got divorced, one of the seeds that affected me, my brother, and my sisters is that we had to deal with the issue. One was fear. The other one was anger. We all had anger to deal with. right? And then the issue of, things about adultery and fornicating, all those things start to manifest in our lives, our 3 lives. Why? Because of what the seeds of division that was in my dad. It just was passed on to us. And when we had to deal with it. Is this too honest? You see what I'm saying? Then we had to deal with it because there were seeds of division that came from his decision to commit adultery. We had to deal with the seeds from it. And you will do the same. When the house is divided, we all take seeds with us. And then we have to deal with those seeds. Because if we don't deal with them, I'm telling you now, people of God, you're gonna have trouble when you get married. You're going to struggle in relationships until you begin to identify the seeds of division that's in your life, right? And this one ain't selfishness. If you can get this one down, you can manage the other ones because this is a strong root, this whole thing of selfishness. If I can see myself and I see how I'm treating a person, not you, what you're doing, it's about you. One thing I love about the scriptures is it says real plain that when we stand before God, he will not ask you about other people. He will only ask you about you. How selfish were you? How humble were you? How loving were you? Just you. And so when you're dealing with selfishness, the first and only thing you have to deal with first is you. What are you doing? What are you doing to make the relationship good or bad? Last point. We were counseling a couple one time. I told you they were a highfalutin couple, very high status. And we were talking to them. And we brought up this whole issue of selfishness. And I said to them, listen, we're here today. Don't tell me, I want you to tell me why we're here. But only tell me the reason, no, you only tell me your part of why we're here. Don't tell me what he did. What did you do? And then we told him, don't tell me what she did, tell me what you did. You know what that does? That makes you force you to look in the mirror. And that session didn't go long. You know why? Because they had to be honest about what they did. We could have been there all night talking about what she did and what he did. No, what did you do to make, why are we here? We're here because something you did. What did you do? That's what God's going to do to all of us. What did you do? Why'd you do that? Right? And so once we deal with this issue of selfishness, then we can build better relationships. Let's stand to our feet. Father, we thank you for the